Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I play a little bit of movie roulette and randomly select a film from my obscenely large and obnoxious movie watch list. It could be literally anything. And boy, did we find something this time. Joining me, one of my most frequent collaborators, is Bubbawheat. Thank you so much for coming on.
Always a pleasure.
And we're going to be talking about 1919's True Heart Susie. So I'm pretty sure this is the oldest one we've done. And it's
Hmm.
probably close to the oldest movie that I've covered on this specific podcast for sure. But I have like the most minimalist background to give on this movie before we dive into the film. But this was indeed released June 1st, 1919. The runtime I had, because I watched the MGM Plus streaming service version of this, was 82 minutes. And the tricky thing is, old movies like this have some discrepancy in their runtimes depending on when you find it. This is from director D.W. Griffith, so pretty famous director from the time. Maybe not for the best reasons, but he did do a lot of interesting things advancing cinema and racism in America. So there you go. And starring Lillian Gish, who is one of the was one of the most influential women of early cinema. So that was a pretty cool thing getting to see her in this. And this survives in the British Film Institute's archives. So that's how they had this print. And here's our plot summary brought to you by IMDb. Susie, a plain young country girl, secretly loves a neighbor boy, William. She believes in him and sacrifices much of her own happiness to promote his own ambitions, all without his knowledge. Eventually, he rises to a position of success and sophistication, and Susie realizes she has thrown her own efforts raised to a level where he is inaccessible to her. So, see, look what happens when you try to do good things for people. Comes back to bite you. That's the moral of the story for True
Yeah,
Heart
my
Susie.
my first thought after watching this is, what's the female term for a cuck?
That 100% what Susie is in this movie. So, like, right off the bat, the biggest thing is like this woman was paying for him to get through like school and everything. He becomes successful and it's just like, look at this woman. I like her. And she's just like, what? And
Well, I think
Susie,
successful is a stretch. He becomes, I guess makes his way
sis.
to middle class.
Hey, that's better than where he came from. So, but no, so this is indeed starring Lillian Gish and Robert Harron. But what were your general thoughts on True Heart Susie besides she's a bit of a female cuck?
I mean, the gender politics were were definitely very dated.
Yes.
Really my main thoughts was, uh, and honestly, I think I looked this up on IMDb and just like barely glanced at it, and I could be wrong, but I think it's listed as a comedy, and I wasn't entirely sure if this was supposed to be a comedy or a drama. And I watched this on YouTube because it is in the public domain, and there's
Yeah.
like a dozen different um, options available on YouTube. I did look for one that actually had music because the first one was playing it
Did
completely
you find
silent.
it? Because
I did find one, yes.
the one on MGM Plus did not have music. And will I am I lying by saying that I did play around with different scores from different movies at some point because I was slightly bored watching this movie? I'm like, that's true, 100% true. Let's see. I think I put the new Predator Badlands score to it for a little bit, which that was A plus. But
Yeah,
no,
I think that this, they with silent films especially, the music really, I mean, this is something that you don't think about because music is so tied into movies that whenever you remove the music from a movie, even a silent film, it really changes so much. And the decision, like the choice for what type of music would also heavily influence because you can have a more dramatic
Hmm.
score and that would give you, more of a dramatic mindset, but you could also have a comedic score because I don't think that there was a ton of comedy, but there were a few moments that really made me laugh and I wasn't 100% sure if all of that was intentional or if some of that was just, the laughing at 1919's gender politics.
That is very fair. And I got a kick out of Lillian Gish and Clarine Seymour because like you could tell like they were being very expressive and
Mhm.
there's moments
Lillian
where
Gish can give side eye like nobody else.
there are moments where I'm just like, dang, like I would not want to be the recipient of that side eye. Just like that's just like a laser beam right there. And obviously this is silent era, so you have to be overly expressive with your acting because otherwise you're not gonna know what the hell's going on. And Lillian Gish showed like she was very expressive. There was a lot that I feel like she brought to the table watching this movie. And if all else didn't really connect with me, like watching her act was interesting. Like I feel
Yeah,
like she made things
100%. Like she
interesting
was
for sure.
definitely the saving grace of this film for me. Like anytime she was on screen, my eyes were drawn to her, and I loved everything that she was doing in this film.
Hmm. And it's interesting because she was a really big fixture of D.W. Griffith's this era of his career because she was a leading lady in a lot of his films. And, she was a very charismatic performer. And, you know, her next to I feel like Robert Heron was a lot of times just like mopey. Just like, look at this dude being poor, or I guess
and they
not as
called attention to
successful
his
as.
and they called attention to his mustache and ever and once he got the mustache, he could not keep his hands off of it.
I wish you could all see me stroking my stubble. That's not quite a mustache, but it's like those kinds of things, and like this takes a dark turn. Um, like
That was honestly my biggest laugh is, jumping ahead to the end. You
yeah,
know, this is very much like kind of not exactly star-crossed lovers, but the girl next door, the unrequited love, she
yeah,
has a crush on him and he has absolutely no time for her, even though at the beginning they're supposed to be like high school age, even though
mhm.
they still both look very much older. They almost look like they're supposed to be like elementary school. Like that was the impression I got, but I think the implication was they were high school age.
It felt like I was
Uh,
watching like 10-15, where it was like two grown adults playing like middle schoolers.
yeah, like Tobin Bell with the backwards baseball cap
That
in that
or the Steve
flashback.
Buscemi,
Yeah.
hello, fellow kids.
But he carves their initials into the tree, but then he never kisses her until the very, very end of the movie. And
Mhm.
that the thing that I thought was hilarious, and this was just like again, me watching it on YouTube, it comes up at the very end, and then they like, he kisses her cheek, and then he goes to finally kiss her on the lips at the very end, and then the little advertisement popped up right over their faces.
It's like, well, that was well timed. Well, because this thing back then, like credits at the end, basically were like 2 seconds. So it was like, well, movie's over. That is one thing that I do appreciate older films is like they know when to just end. Like, what have we been waiting for? Them to kiss. So, they kissed, go home. Show's over, folks. That's basically it. But like, I couldn't believe like this woman gets fatally ill, dies, and then he's like,
Well, you're jumping ahead a little
well,
bit,
I guess
this,
I'll give Susie a chance.
yeah, this whole time, Susie sells the family cow against her aunt's wishes, and like her parents are apparently dead, and she lives with her aunt, her older aunt, and she sells the family cow and sends it anonymously to William so to pay for his college, and pretends that it's like from this wealthy man about town that told William that he would do well, and like gave him his business card. And then so William goes to college, and then uh comes back, and then eventually marries like a flapper, and the paint, a woman with painted face and powder and silk stockings. And then she wants nothing to do with him. She's more interested in, was the guy's name Sporty?
Sporty.
And then, she goes off and parties because she doesn't really care for him as a husband, doesn't know how to cook.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I guess this almost feels like maybe this is a Thanksgiving movie, which is, perfectly timed for when
Yeah.
we're recording this. Because, Susie bakes a turkey dinner and invites William and his wife. But then, she gets tired of the marriage and goes out partying with Sporty and her girlfriends. And then it's like pouring down rain. She loses her key, gets deathly ill, dies. But before that, she runs over to Susie's and gets Susie to cover for her and says, "Oh, I went out in the rain and I got you your book that you were decided not to get." And so he pledges his undying vow that he will never marry another because she was so true to him. And then like it, and then
Yes.
he, and yeah, like my two, the two bits that made me laugh the hardest was, jumping back a little bit, whenever William goes off to college and he gets kissed on the mouth by Susie's aunt twice. And it's just like, they act like that's the most normal thing. And meanwhile, he's avoiding kissing Susie at all costs in a very
Yep.
like comedically awkward moment. And
Let
then
me
the
just
other
plant one
thing,
on your aunt.
and then the other thing um, is after his wife, oh, I can't think of her name. It's
Betty.
Bettina.
Yes, Bettina.
Bettina dies, and the title card says, Bettina died as she lived, a little bit unfaithfully.
Oh, there were some. This movie did have its moments.
Yeah.
It just reminded me because I not gonna lie, this is my birthday this past weekend. I rewatched Shrek 2 twice, where it's just like he needs to find his true love, and the farm girl's like, "I'll be your true love. I'll be your true love. I'll be true enough." That's Betty. That's Betty right there. So where, Susie just wanted to be his true love the whole time. Betty was just true enough. So th- this was a very interesting experience watching this movie because, like, obviously, a quick look into the gender politics of any time is watching rom-coms because just like the whole dynamic between men and women and stuff like that. Watching a rom-com from 1919 is quite the interesting experience.
There's also that random moment where Susie was I guess becoming the spinster lady with the kittens. She just randomly had kittens crawling all over her for no reason. They didn't never showed up before or after.
Hey, I want kittens to be climbing all over me. But to be fair, I do have three cats and they're enough. But it's one of those things where it's like that's such a stereotypical like I'm just gonna be a spinster cat lady. Glad to hear that cat ladies existed in 1919.
The other thing that I thought was kind of bizarre but also mildly funny was the comedic scene with Susie and her aunt whenever I guess her aunt was under the weather, and Susie was trying to get her to, I guess, lay down under the covers, and like she starts off um, pulling the covers up over her feet, and then she has to tickle her aunt's feet to get her to move her feet so she can stuff the water bottle under there. And then her aunt keeps like pulling the cover down so she can get her arm out, and then Susie keeps tucking her in, and then like for more and more forcefully tucking her in, even like sitting on the covers for a while.
Wild time in 1919. You tickled your aunt's feet. Your aunt just planted lip on lip kisses on the love of your life who doesn't love you back. This, this certainly had its moments. Like, I don't know if I'd come back to a film like this, but like it was definitely worth watching for Lillian Gish, and I would love to see, like, I don't know if this was one of like, I'm looking at interesting. I'm looking at her IMDb and like her four, realizing, yeah, she was a Night of the Hunter. Love that movie, but she was much older at that point in 1955,
Yeah,
versus
she made it.
1919.
Yeah, she made
So
it all the way to 1987 was her final role.
yeah, wild. She lived until 1993. Good for her. She's 99 years old. If only.
Yeah, the only other thing that I thought was interesting that I'm sure it probably holds true with D.W. Griffith's other movies was I noticed that I think one reason why Griffith gets a lot of credit in terms of like filmmaking historians is because he had a good PR department and he was good at branding because
Yep.
he's got the DG logo everywhere
Yes.
and like the Griffith in like most
Yeah.
of the title cards, even though like I'm not super well versed in a silent movie, but I followed a couple blogs. I'll give a shout out to Movies Silently. That's a
Mhm.
great silent era blog, and she's definitely written articles about how D.W. Griffiths was not the first to do a lot of stuff that people give him credit for being the first. He just had a better PR campaign.
Yep. Sure did. For sure. Well, what's funny was where my head went with like talking about like trademark things at DW Griffith. I'm like, there was people in blackface at the very beginning. I'm like, well, that didn't surprise me in this movie. And like they didn't draw a ton of attention to him, but I'm just like, yep, that is a white person for sure. Playing not a white person. But alas, was the times, especially in a D.W. Griffith film. But like I think this is worth checking out for Lillian Gish for sure. And whether like I know some of this was definitely meant to be funny, but it was kind of a ridiculous movie just to period. So honestly, there's some things to laugh about along the way. I'm still laughing about that title card about her death.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh man.
we're talking about kind of we're picking out the best bits. I wouldn't draw people away from it. But if you're listening to our conversation, I think we have hit on pretty much all the best bits, and the rest of it is a bit of a slog to get through. Like I was kind of falling
Yes.
asleep in moments, but it did have like those small handful of funny moments
Yes, this was
that made
indeed
me
an
enjoy it.
almost hour and a half movie, and there are definitely long stretches of time in between some of these highlights that were not exactly the most engaging, especially if you watch this without a score. I definitely, it's like there's moments where I'm just like, okay, let's can move along now. I would be interested if this like got like tightened up to like maybe like an hour 10, and see how it flowed. But it is what it is. I want to know what happened to the family cow. That is a spin-off movie that I want to see. What happened after Susie sold the family cow?
Well, he did sign a letter saying that he would treat it like a member of the family.
Well, we'll have to watch the spin-off movie to find out to see if he held true to his
Well,
word.
and it is a dairy, they say that it's a dairy cow, and they tend to have, at least somewhat longer lives than, beef cattle.
There you go. But I guess, Bubbawheat, do you have any last-minute thoughts on True Heart Susie?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered it pretty well.
And the subplot, true enough heart Betty. So there you go. But thank you as always for coming on and chatting some movies with me.
Of course.
And thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite, like going way back into the early era of film? Some of that silent era, back in the 19 teens when most movies were still also like 20, 30 minutes long. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew Podcasting Network is ever expanding. We have so many great shows with all different types of interests. I'm sure you'll find something, especially if you love movies. And if you want to join the crew as a guest on a show like this one, or start your own podcast, reach out to us on our website. If you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. And most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.